Arkansas finally won a basketball game.
Ooh, pig
Big
suey.
Suey.
Big Suey, baby, in the year of our Lord and Savior 2025.
Sorry.
First win of the season of the year, first win of the conference season. We finally have some good news to talk about. Still some weird stuff going on in this game, but Arkansas is now what 1-5 in SEC play, and putting themselves in position where maybe they can make a run. But we're gonna get into all that here in just a second. Quick reminder, we are brought to you by the Field of 68 Podcast Network. You can find us on YouTube, on Twitter, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your stuff at. Be sure to go like, comment, retweet, subscribe, whatever it is you do on those sites. We've got, like I said, some good Arkansas basketball to talk about. So let's just jump right into it. Arkansas defeats Georgia in a impressive, gritty comeback performance. They were down 15 points at one point in this game, and it was the things that we've been talking about a lot in this podcast that really won them this game in terms of effort, in terms of better team rebounding, the offensive glass, getting to the free throw line. It was a combination of a lot of things. One thing that it wasn't was good shooting. Still a very inefficient shooting night for the team, but a lot of good things that I think maybe broke down some barriers from a mental perspective and maybe instilled a little bit of confidence, maybe a little bit of momentum with his team. But a lot of good things that we saw. This is their first game without Boogie Fland, without their freshman leader, right? He's one of the best assist guys in the country. I think the leading freshman right now, and or was the leading freshman in assists per game, and second in the SEC behind only Zakai Ziegler, and a really good assist to turnover ratio kind of guy. So, I mean, it's definitely a big loss when you lose someone like that running your offense. I was curious how it would look though, because he was such a high volume shooter with low efficiency. I was curious if maybe someone else would get those shots and maybe we'd see a little bit better efficiency. We did not, but um, one thing that I did notice though is that the turnovers didn't really increase like I was worried that they would. The assists did go down quite a bit. They only had 6 assists as a team, but this was I think their lowest turnover number in the last 3 games. So that was
And
a
we
good sign, I think.
and we didn't really start turning the ball over at a high rate until this late in the second half.
Yeah, that's true. I think that like the very first possession was a turnover, and then after that, it kind of settled.
hmm
Um,
I want
it
to
just
say we only
wasn't.
had like 3 or 4 turnovers at halftime.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, it was not what I was worried about. Right, I was kind of concerned about what the turnover margin would look like, but it was not bad at all. That is um, not a reason, not like a negative in this game, a reason that we were really down. It was really just the shooting. Like we couldn't make anything in the first half, and we were running okay sets. Like there's questionable sets at times where you kind of wonder why guys are put in certain positions, but most of the time it's just guys not making shots at this point. There were plenty of open looks, and you have guys like Nelly Davis goes 1 of 10 from 3-point range. That's like that's like impressively bad at this point. If you're
Yeah.
getting 10 threes, I mean, even making 2 or 3 of them is not a great percentage, right?
And
But to
and
make
what's
1 of 10.
crazy to me is I feel like he was getting good shots.
He
Like
was getting good
Oh
looks
yeah.
for
I
sure.
felt like Cal really did good about coming out the second half for sure. Um, Setting up motions to get people open. Like we were getting open looks. And you don't want to tell somebody, don't shoot, but at a certain point when you're 1 for 10, like hold up.
Well, and
You
especially
know?
in the second half, you had Nelly running floppies like he was Steph Curry, like going back and forth trying to get open looks. And
Right.
I don't think it's a Cal thing. And I think I talked to y'all about this during the game. Like this doesn't feel like a coaching issue because Cal's making the adjustments. We're getting open looks. We're
Yeah,
just straight up not hitting shots.
I agree.
100%. Yeah. I think he had a pretty good coaching job in this game. Obviously, it's easy to say that when you have a 15-point comeback, but I don't think that any of our issues to this point have really been him just leaving guys on an island or getting the wrong guys the ball consistently, right? Like you can question some plays, you can question like you were saying, Nelly's running back and forth trying to get open looks when he's already 1 of 10, like those kind of things, sure. But for the most part, they were still open looks for a guy that shot 40% last year. Like,
Right.
what
It
other options do we have? You know?
Yeah.
to me that felt like Cal trying to get Nelly to shoot himself out of a slump in a situation where we're able to give Nelly more shots. Like with Flan being out, like this was just an opportunity to feed Nelly, get him in a groove, and like shoot yourself out of this slump that you've been in. See a couple of your threes go down. Like we've seen a couple games where he's hit two or threes, went on a little, run by himself. But I mean, as like a strictly offensive player and someone who relies so heavily on the 3-point shot, mid-range shot, like his jump shot, you can't just have like a game where you shoot the ball 8 times and you see 3 of them fall. Like that's not going to do it for you. But if you have like these types of games where you shoot high volume and you hit a high number of shots, that will get you back in rhythm. And I think that's what the plan was for this game, was to shoot Nelly back into rhythm.
Yeah, and I don't blame that. Like, I don't blame Cal or Nelly at all for doing that. That's really
Mm-hmm.
important because I think Cal knows, I think Nelly knows, I think all of Arkansas knows that if we stand a chance at getting into March, it's going to be because Nelly Davis stepped up and played the way we needed him to play. I mean,
Yeah.
that's end of story. If we can get him to the point where he's being at least effective, you know, better than one of 10,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to change everything. And I don't necessarily expect us to have many more nights where we're this bad at shooting, where we've been mediocre at best, as far as our shooting typically goes. But last night was just awful. So let's get him moving. I mean, we've got a winnable game next week or Saturday. So I'd like to see more of it, and hopefully more of them go in.
By far the worst shooting performance as a team from three this year, only 13% from three in this game. Um, there was one other game against Florida. They shot worse from the field as a team. They only shot 30% against Florida, and it was 31% against Georgia. So overall, one of the worst shooting performances of the season offensively, but they counteract that with what I mentioned at the top, the effort and getting the second chance points, getting a few steals, getting a few fast break points. But I mean, getting 34 free throw attempts and not only getting the attempts but converting, hitting 29 of 34.
Mm-hmm.
And a huge part of that is Carter Knox that's getting offensive rebounds and cutting and like being aggressive. That was huge. I mean, can we talk about Carter Knox grow up game for a second?
Yeah.
Forcing his way to the free throw line 13 times and going
I
11
mean,
of 13. That's
I
huge.
couldn't tell you how many times when we were in the bonus in the second half that he would just fly in there looking to get a rebound and got fouled out of it. That's how he got, I would say, half of his free throws, was crashing the offensive glass, and they couldn't block him out.
Yeah, and what
Yeah,
a
and
go ahead, Brandon.
I was about to add, and what is that called, Matt? I think Joey might have asked you on the last pod if you ever had anything else to say other than effort stats, but what is
Effort,
that, Matt?
effort, baby, hustle, baby. It won us
It
that
won them the
game.
game.
And then
Yeah.
sprinkle in the little fact that Matt didn't watch the second half, so that's why we won the game.
I was tired. I had to go to bed. I watched the second half this morning, but like I was gonna say, that is not an area where I expected Carter Knox to be like a key contributor.
100%.
You sit here and we were talking at the beginning of the season how, I mean, he's going to be the guy putting up the points.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's like resorted to this grit player that goes in, gets offensive rebounds, hits free throws, but he's becoming what we need him to be. And that, to me, the adaptation of him shows how good of a player he is going to end up being as he
And
develops.
it's totally opposite from what we've seen earlier in the season. Like there were several games ago where we were talking about how timid he was playing, and like he was very passive and not wanting to, make anyone mad. Like on the offensive side of the ball, he wasn't really giving much effort on defense. And now, he comes out against Georgia as a completely different player. It was
Yep.
very impressive.
They just looked like they had a fire under their butts after that at the beginning of the second half. I mean, it was just a complete change of pace, of play, of everything.
Yeah, and big shout out to, we haven't even said his name yet, but Edu Thero had 17 points and 11 rebounds in this game, including 5 offensive rebounds. A major spark, and with Boogie out, this is what we got to have from him almost every night, right? Approaching a double double, lead the team in points, grab a few steals, a few blocks, just be a nuisance and be effective on both sides of the court all night long, and that's what he did, and kind of quietly, right? Like he only took 8 shot attempts total, but because of the offensive rebounds, the turnovers he forced, he drew 7 fouls and got to the free throw line several times, and was effective from the free throw line, right? There was a stretch early in the season where he had a pretty bad free throw percentage, but I think he's a pretty good free throw percentage guy, like 77-ish% or better. So that's huge. You have to have that from him without Boogie now. He's got to be that scorer, and until someone like maybe Nelly figures it out. But um,
And
but
what
yeah,
was and what
go
was
ahead.
great about Thero was he didn't settle. Like he didn't settle for threes. He didn't take, mid-range jumpers. Like he was powering his way to the rim every time down the court.
Yeah, that the last floater that he put up, the one that I think tied the game, or yeah, tied the game. He, exactly what you said, caught the ball with a decent look at the 3-point line, passed it up, went in a hard jump stop into the paint, before putting up a little floater to tie the game. So yeah, 100% not settling,
Yeah, and
taking what he wanted.
the best part about that was he was taking it into the paint. I mean, getting hit, and I mean, he was still finishing. Like he wasn't missing as many layups as we saw. I can't even remember what game we
Yeah, it was like,
lost where we were just missing every layup. Was it Missouri? Was it Missouri? We
I think it
just
was
kept
Florida.
missing. Was it Florida?
It was
I don't
probably
know.
both.
All of them. All of them. We were just missing layups, and he was a big part of that. But this game, I mean, I'll give him his flowers. He was a stud.
Yeah, and for me, this game, it it's Arkansas needed a win in a big way, but moving forward, I think this game does two things for the team, or at least I hope it does, right? Like this is what I'm watching for as we move forward. First of all, I feel like we kind of found an identity, and it exactly, I think Carter Knox embodies that, exactly what we were just talking about, how he was too shy and timid, didn't know what his role was or what to do. The team has an identity now, and it's hustle, it's grit, it's crashing the glass, all 5 guys in the paint. It's, the effort stats, if they can play that way and actually make that their identity, they can win some games like that, because shots will fall, right? Like we're not, like we've proven we're not a good 3-point shooting team, but nobody is a 13% 3-point shooting team, right? Like shots will fall if you continue to play hard and effort like that. But that brings me to my second point of what I hope comes out of this game is you break the losing streak and you see the ball go through the hoop, what, 29 times from the free throw line, and you actually see some shots being made. It breaks down that mental barrier, because I think that we were getting to a point where there was just no confidence anymore. Like it was beyond a talent thing, depth, anything else. It was just confidence at this point. And I mean, even early, the first half of this game, you could see it with the shots not falling. When guys are second guessing every time they touch the ball and every time they shoot the ball, you're not going to be a good basketball player, no matter who you are. So those two things, right? Finding the identity, understanding what it is now going to take to win these games and how you need to play, and then also maybe gaining a little confidence back, letting go of the losing streak, kind of a fresh start. Now let's see if we can go get this thing rolling, right? So I'm hoping that this game kind of unlocked both of those things for these guys and for this team. But before we move on from that, though, there were some bad things. I mean, we've been talking about how inefficient we were, but the two lead ball handlers, right? Like the two leading guards, DJ Wagner and Nelly Davis combined, both of them shot 3 of 14 from the field each. And we've already talked about Nelly going 1 of 10 from three. And that just can't happen. Like it was a very unique circumstance that Arkansas was able to still come back and win this game the way they did. And we haven't talked about their defense a lot either, but there was a lot of stops in this game that allowed them to come back on that run. But the two lead guards cannot combine to go 6 of 28 and only 6 assists total as a team. Right? Like you have to figure some things out offensively. And maybe what I was just saying, maybe the confidence plays a big factor in that. Maybe we see some shots fall now and guys kind of find their rhythm, but That's pretty abysmal. Um, and then the other thing that I was going to talk about, and I've felt kind of like this for a little while, and it's hard to say it out loud because he's such a like a spark plug and a energy factor for the team. But Billy Richmond does a lot of things that makes me kind of cringe and shake my head because he's just not quite ready yet. I mean, you see the potential. He's crazy athletic. He plays incredibly hard all the time, but I think that leads to too many turnovers and obviously way too many fouls. Like he's got such a high fouls per minute rate. He tries to dribble the ball into people and turns it over. He tries to make passes that aren't there. He fouls 90 feet away from the rim trying to get a rebound when like the guy already has the rebound. He's just swiping at the ball. There are a lot of things that he does that I think kind of hurts the team at this point. And eventually the game will slow down for him, and I think that he will understand and be more ready. But right now, I think some of their best lineups don't include Billy Richmond. How do you guys feel about that take?
Yeah, I mean, with Billy, he reminds his case kind of reminds me of Layden Blocker last year. We talked a little bit about how Layden was just a great defender. Like he would lock you down, but he would gamble. He would try to go get a glass, offensive glass when we needed him back. He would crash offensive glass when we need him back on defense and things of that nature. It was just like to me, it's him being so young and inexperienced at the higher level of basketball. I feel like with Boogie and Carter, of course, they were playing in these elite level programs coming out of high school, so they have a little bit more, um, I guess, control over how they play. But I don't know. I like seeing him because I like the hustle. But I do agree he does give us a lot of stupid fouls, and there are a lot of things that I just like shake my head at and don't necessarily love to see. So I don't know. Keep developing him. I mean, you're gonna have to let him play
You
at
have no
least a
other
little
option.
bit,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I agree though. As far as maybe some options of him sitting out are definitely better for us.
And I was gonna say the exact same thing, Matt. Brandon, if you wouldn't have said Billy Richmond and just described a player, I think 90% of, Razorback fans would have thought that you were describing Layden Blocker, which is interesting to me because we were such fans of Layden last year. And I think that shows how much the team has changed and how much needs change year over year. Um, with such a small squad, like small as in we only have 8 players that can play on a night to night basis, um, you kind of need different things out of different players. Um, I I'm not to the point where I don't think Billy Richmond isn't valuable, and I know that you're not saying that. But he's, to Matt's point, he is young, but he gives a ton of intensity night in and night out. And if he can just like kind of hone that in a little bit, I don't think his game is going to change. Like I think this is who he is as a player. I think the same thing about Layden. I think just that high energy kind of chaos is the type of players that they are, but they need to turn it into a controlled chaos. There's a very fine line between being a chaotic player and being the good kind of chaotic that we want them to be. And a lot of that's going to come with time. A lot of that's going to come with age,
The game will
years
slow
under the,
down for him eventually. He'll
yeah,
figure it out and see things slower. He'll see it. He'll
yeah.
get there. I will say that, I do agree completely with the Layden comp. The two things I think that set Billy apart in my eyes, Layden never developed into a great shooter while he was here, but he was at least a threat from outside. I think Billy has looked at the rim about twice outside of the paint total this season. And so that changes a little bit of the offensive dynamic. It doesn't put Layden like head and shoulders above Billy. But the other thing is, like you said, the team need, right? Like we have wing defenders that can do a lot of what Billy does on this team. Last year, when you had Ellis and Minifield, that were guys that are just getting blown by defensively, you needed that guard defender on the court to give you something. Like, so that, to me, that's the difference there. And but I agree completely with what you're saying. The young players, the effort, the out of control. It's a good comp. Um, but to me, that's the difference. And the problem is, though, exactly the other thing we were talking about. You don't really have much other choice. Like you have to play your eight guys. So you got it's trial by fire. He's got to develop and figure it out on the fly to be effective. And I think he can be and he will be, but it's just something I wanted to bring up that I see a lot of him doing things that can be harmful when he's on the court. Um, so real quick before we move on to the next game, we've been talking about a little bit this identity that Arkansas found in the second half against Georgia, this out hustling people and crashing the glass and forcing free throws, and it's fun to watch for the first time in a long time. Like I feel like this was a fun second half to watch, but I'm nervous about how sustainable it is because of how shallow our rotation is. When your game plan is to beat people with effort more than it is with the efficient offense, that's going to be hard when you only have three subs on the bench going deep into conference play. So I think that even just this style of play with a few more shots falling, I think Arkansas can beat a few teams in the SEC. I think they can win 5 or 6 SEC games just doing what they did against Georgia. But can they continue it and sustain it over the course of several weeks when the schedule is just like a gauntlet every week? I don't know the answer to that. That's what I'm going to be, paying attention to over the next few weeks. I mean, do you guys think this is a sustainable play style?
I think it all depends solely on, well, you mentioned it, with a few extra made shots,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, those shots are able to slow the other team down enough to where you're not just constantly playing as hard as possible defense and running in transition. If you can sit down and do a couple half court plays and slow yourself down, you lessen that fatigue. But overall, do I think that's going to happen? Probably not. So no, I don't think it's sustainable, but I do agree. I think we can knock off a few teams, and I think we can maybe even knock off some bigger name teams just because we come out with so much intensity. I mean, we see it happen all the time in March. We just have to make it happen, in February when it
Yeah.
gets to crunch time.
Yeah, I completely agree with Matt. Definitely not sustainable. We've got to hit shots. One thing that I really liked about the Georgia game, and props to Cal for this, was the strategic full court pressing. Like we didn't press, every possession, but once we hit a shot, we'd get it down there, and we'd force a steal or we'd force a turnover. Like it was very strategic in when he pressed, and I think that saved a lot of energy because in the Musselman era, we probably would have pressed for the entire 20 minutes down 15 at half or 13 at half, however much we were down. So I think that's a really good coaching decision, and I think that part of the effort battle is sustainable throughout the year, but you're not going to get 30 free throws a game every game. I we were texting back and forth about how we thought the game was being called very very touchy. We didn't think that some of the calls were fouls, and that they're not going to be fouls in most places. Take that away from Bud Walton, and we're probably shooting maybe 20 free throws. I think there were a lot of calls that very easily could have went the other way. So I mean, just by the way of the whistle, I don't think it's sustainable.
And one more shout out I wanted to give. I meant to say this when we were talking about the players, but Trevin Brazil didn't have just like a crazy good game. He only played 11 minutes, mostly due to foul trouble. What you're talking about, he had 4 fouls. But he had a stretch late in the second half where it was like big three, good defensive stand, offensive rebound, kick out, offensive rebound on the next possession. I mean, he had like a minute and a half stretch where he just like sparked the team when they were down like 10 points or so. And I don't think they win the game without him providing that kind of spark. So in his limited minutes, I think that he was pretty necessary and effective in the stretch that he put together there. I meant to mention that earlier, but yeah, shout out to Brazil.
I really
My
don't
hot
think there was a team or a player that we didn't need. I mean, they all
You're
performed
right. Yeah.
really
My
well.
my hot take is I haven't seen anything this year that shows me that Adu and Big Z should be playing more than Brazil.
Yeah. That's just a strength thing at sometimes. All right. Like there's some bigs that you need more like I think Brazil is so much better suited as a four against some teams, but I don't disagree with you. He's been more consistent and provided that spark more often than either of the other two.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But all right, we're gonna take a quick little break, and we're gonna be right back with an Oklahoma preview and a look ahead at some of the rest of the schedule. We'll be right back.
As you guys know by now, we've partnered with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 as we all get ready for the best month of the year, March Madness. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use the bonus code FIELD150 and you will get $150 in free bets on your first wager with BetMGM, regardless of whether or not you win that first bet. Here's the best part. All you need to do is deposit and bet $5 of your hard earned money. This is how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD150. That's FIELD150. Deposit at least $5 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $150 in bonus bets, regardless of the outcome of your bet. Just make sure you use that bonus code FIELD150 when you sign up. And remember, BetMGM is now available in one wallet in select states. As a New Jersey resident, this is super convenient when I have to go cover games in Philly or New York, which happens quite a bit. When you cross state borders, you just log into your existing account and fire away. You don't have to create a new account in each state. It's easy, it's simple, and it's clean. And most importantly, we have some fun stuff coming up for the conference tournaments and for the NCAA tournament. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boost, and my personal favorite, a nice little parlay boost here and there. So download the BetMGM app and sign up today. Big news, guys. I am thrilled to announce that we have partnered with Autograph, a company founded by the GOAT himself, Tom Brady. The Autograph fandom app gives you access to the best college hoops content, fan contests, and exclusive rewards like discounted tickets, all for doing the things that diehard fans like you already do, following your favorite team in the news and listening to podcasts just like this one. When Tom, and yes, I am calling him Tom, we're on a first name basis these days, co-founded Autograph, he had one mission in mind: change the fan experience for the better. It works like this: you get all of your college hoops content you want in one place. You get articles from your favorite writers, pods from your favorite hosts, contests from your favorite creators, all on the feeds and the sites that you already enjoy. But instead of having to go to all these different places, it all comes to you in one spot, the Autograph fandom app. But here's the best part: the more content that you consume, the higher you rank in the app. As you consider the level up in status on the app, you can unlock unique rewards curated exclusively for you. So download the free Autograph app in the App Store and use the referral code F68, that's F68, or tap in at the link in the description below or in the podcast app of your choosing to start earning points for doing something as normal as listening to this very podcast.
All right, Saturday night game in Bud Walton Arena, 7:30 tip-off, Arkansas versus Oklahoma. It'll be the first time these teams meet as SEC foes, but they've played the last 3 years in that little the BOK Center, the neutral site game series that they've had over the last 3 years. Oklahoma has won two of the last three games against Arkansas. And they're currently coming off of, or they will be coming off of a week of rest when they tip off against the Hogs. They had their, I guess you consider it a bye week. They haven't played since last Saturday, and Arkansas will be on only 3 days of rest from Wednesday night. And exactly what we just finished talking about, sustaining the energy and stuff against teams. I think this will be a great test because they're against a team. They're going up against a team that has fresher legs, and they're coming off of a gritty, high emotional win, and so being able to sustain that into Saturday, even though it is a home game, I think will be telling if they're able to play that same way again. But Oklahoma is currently ranked number 50 in the net rankings, 49 in Ken Palm, much better offensively than they are defensively by the metrics. So Arkansas did a pretty good job against Georgia defensively and contained them pretty well on the glass. Gonna have to see it again against Oklahoma because their offense is like right around that top 25 mark. So Arkansas just got to bring it defensively and just bring the effort again. Exactly like I was saying, you got to see if this is sustainable. A couple players to call out for Oklahoma. Jalen Moore, their leading scorer. He's only listed at 6'4", but he's kind of been starting at like the 4 spot for them in a lot of games. The last 2 games, they've slid another 6'6" guy into the starting lineup, so he's kind of playing more the 3. But I think this could be a matchup with Thero a lot of the game. But Moore is averaging over 18 points a game, 44% from 3, and that includes he's hitting 60% of his threes in SEC play. So absolutely a player you've got to be attached to all game long. I really don't want to see Nelly Davis guarding Jalen Moore very much because Nelly's still kind of finding his footing defensively, and I feel like he loses his man sometimes, just trying to like figure out where he needs to be. But that's a different conversation. Jeremiah Fears leads the team in steals. This is a team that kind of forces a good amount of turnovers, likes to get out on the break when they can. He averages almost 2 steals per game. So this is going to be another test on how well Arkansas can take care of the ball without Boogie handling the ball. Um, Even if the assists aren't where they were, you still can't lose sight of the turnovers. You still have to take care of the ball well, whether you're moving the ball or driving like they did last game, whatever their game plan is. You just got to have good ball security. And then Sam Godwin, a player that comes off the bench for Oklahoma, currently leads the SEC in offensive rebound rate, which is essentially the percentage of available offensive rebounds that he could get that he does end up with. And I think Asa Newell for Georgia was like third on that list, second or third on that list, and he grabbed 4 offensive rebounds against Arkansas. Godwin's even better. He's a much higher rebound rate on the offensive glass. So again, can the Hogs oh my God, can the Hogs sustain their defensive rebounding and their good defense that we saw in the second half versus Georgia? I think all 3 of these players will put them to the test in different ways.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I think this is a perfect example of, will the team coming off of a high win just overpower the team that's coming off of a bye week, or will the fresh legs beat the guys that have played? I always give the edge to the guys that have been playing, because I know how I always felt coming off of a break and playing a game. I was sluggish, so fingers crossed that's what happens.
And it all comes down to we got to hit shots. Like
Yeah.
we got to see the ball go through the basket, or else it's gonna be a nightmare.
Golly.
Yep.
Yeah.
I said it earlier. Maybe one win, just seeing the win column again, breaks some of those mental barriers, because a lot of it is mental. Basketball is a big mental game. So maybe gaining some of that confidence and letting go of some of the overthinking that you do when you're on a losing streak, letting go of some of that, maybe the shots start to go through. It's definitely something I'm going to be paying attention to
And
see how confident they play.
I would say it probably took a lot of stress off of Cal too,
Yeah.
I mean, I
He
can
seemed
only
happier in the post game.
yeah, I can only imagine how stressful it must be when, oh, gosh, this is one of the few times he's ever started.
He's
0
never
and
started this
5.
bad.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine the stress he was feeling. So relieve some of that tension from him, relieve that tension from the players. Let's look like a basketball team, a good one, because we can't.
And to your point, Brandon, that the second half against Georgia, like we looked confident. That was the most confident that we've looked the entire season. So maybe I'm hoping that it does funnel over a little bit.
Yep. And remaining on the schedule, I think Oklahoma is like just judging by the metrics, right? By the net rankings, Ken Palm, the other stuff that you would look at, they're considered like the 3rd worst team left on Arkansas' schedule. behind South Carolina, who's widely considered the worst team in the SEC this year, and LSU, a team that has already beaten Arkansas. So I say all that to say the third worst team on your schedule at home, it doesn't get any more must win than this, right? You have to take advantage of this type of opportunity, a team that is very beatable on your home court. You figured something out, whatever that might be, you found some kind of identity. So this is a must win game for the Hogs. And can't put it any simpler than that. All right. Well, that is all we have for you guys today. Looking forward to another game. It's nice even after an ugly win. It's nice waking up after a win, feeling a little bit differently. Let's see if they can put together a little bit of momentum and carry this forward. See what they can do with it. But until then, until we see it, we appreciate you guys tuning in to talk some Razorback basketball with us. Reminder, we are brought to you by the Field of 68 Podcast Network. You can find us on YouTube, on Twitter, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your stuff at. Please like, subscribe, share the podcast, whatever it is you do on those sites. We really appreciate it. I've been your host, Brandon Baker, joined by Joey Jackson and Matt Jackson. And